yeah. Oh, yeah, baby. How's it going, everyone? I am back. I've been sick for like 2 weeks, so go ahead and make fun of my voice all you want. I'm coming up on, this is probably going to be my favorite podcast because I'm finally bringing you what the whole show's about. It's all about how not to succeed in showbiz, right? So this is my very first big attempt that was a childhood dream. And what do you think happened? All right, so let's recap the beginning just to get to this point, and then I'm just going to riff this story and hope it comes out well. So, everybody knows about the puppets. We're sick of hearing about the puppets. But remember, in the beginning, I told the story of how I wrote Jim Henson a letter, and or the Muppets, and said, how do I build puppets, all that stuff, I want to be a puppeteer. And they had sent me back a nice, like a booklet on how puppets work. And they also had stationery with the greeting on it, and it said Henson Associates, ha, with an exclamation point, and it had their New York address and a phone number. Now, I said, when I was 11 years old, I'm going to hold on to this thing, and when I'm grown up and out of college, I'm going to call Jim Henson and ask for a job. Because in my eyes, by the time you're 11, or from 11 to 22, that's a huge amount of years. I thought I would be a master puppeteer by then. So, my senior year in college rolls around, and I had to take some senior courses that are only for the seniors, the graduate courses. One of them was called Development of Drama. And I was in another advanced acting class. And my acting coach, Sue Pate, she came from Cornell University, and she was a mime, and she did all this stuff. Really good teacher that I enjoyed. And I told her what I've been telling you guys. I told her my little childhood dream. And she kind of just looked at me real serious, and she was like, all right, so what have you done about that? And I just started laughing. I was like, what are you talking about? She goes, were you going to call him? I go, no, I was a kid. What was it calling Jim Henson? I haven't been puppeteering since I was a kid, and that was just kind of a fantasy thing. She goes, I don't understand why you can't just call him. That's what you want to do, right? I said, well, I mean, I don't know. I guess. I mean, she goes, well, do you still like puppets? I go, well, sure. Well, you've got training, you've got voice training, your puppeteering skills, I don't know what they're like, but, you should give it a shot. Why not? And I was still kind of laughing her off. And there was another girl in our theater department, and I just can't remember her name. She transferred my senior year, and she was a puppeteer. And I remember telling her the same story in a nutshell about this. And she said, well, I had a friend that went to a puppeteering convention, and Jim Henson was there. And he walked right up to Jim Henson when he was signing autographs and said, I really, really want to work for you. And he said, good. And he gave him information, and he got a hold of Jim Henson, and he became an apprentice and started training with the Muppets. And I was like, it's that easy? She goes, well, it was, a few years ago, Jim Henson really respects passionate people and really wants, that type of person to be working for him. And he wants to give people opportunities, And I was like, now I'm starting to kind of figure out, well, like everybody was saying, or not everybody, but what Sue Pate was saying and my other friend, just call the number. I mean, what's he going to say? No, it's not like I'm calling this number and Jim Henson's going to go, hello, it's Jim Henson, what's going on? So I said, all right, I'm going to get the courage up. It took me about a week of every day doing that whole thing when you pick the phone up and you start to call and you go, no, and you slam the phone back down. Okay, what do I say? What do I do? I actually wrote out what I was going to say only so that I wouldn't get tongue-tied. So here it goes. I call the number to Henson. This guy answers. Now, I don't know what he looks like, but I pictured he looks like a humorist by the name of Harvey Pekar. Google him, IMDb him, you'll know what this guy. And he's a funny guy. And that's what I pictured this guy looking like. So he answers the phone. I hear this, Henson Associates. I'm all, Henson Associates. I kind of started laughing, and I go, hi, hi. My name's Larry, and I'm a senior in college, and I really want to work for Jim Henson and be a puppeteer. I was just wondering what steps I need to take. And there's this pause. He goes, so you want to be a puppeteer, huh? Can you do any voices? And I'm like, well, yeah, I could, sure. He goes, let me hear you do Miss Piggy. And I'm like, I can't really do Miss Piggy. And so he starts to try to do Miss Piggy. And he goes like this, Miss Piggy. And he does it. And then he goes, what else can you do? I said, well, I can do Gonzo. And I did Gonzo. No, I'm not going to do it for you guys now. So I did Gonzo. I did Kermit. I don't know what else I did. I just did a couple of them. He goes, it's not too bad. He goes, all right, okay. So here's what you want to do. You got to get a tape over to Mira Velimirovic, and she'll take a listen to your tape, and then you go from there. And now I'm nervous. I'm trying to write down what he's saying. I have no clue what this means. Milamikrik? What are you saying? He goes, look, get it over to Velimirovic, okay? Because she's the one that's going to listen to it. And I still don't know what he's talking about. Is this a company? What is this? Now, East Coast people, I'm not trying to do a stereotype voice, but I am, because I like doing it. And this nice guy, but, in New York, he was being polite. Whereas I'm like, first time I've talked to somebody from New York, I think he's just like being a big jerk. So I'm like, look, I'm sorry. What did you say? And he goes, Mira Velimirovic. Oh, okay. Okay, he goes, yeah, get her a tape. Okay, where do I send it to? Okay, write this down. You got a pencil? Yeah, I got a pencil. So he gives me the address. And I go, so you want it on a cassette tape? Yeah, what else are you going to put it on? Of course on a cassette tape. You're going to put it on a pencil and send it in the mail and hope I can read it on a... He's like being totally obnoxious. And I'm like, okay, I'll put it on a... Yeah, I just wanted to know about the length. And he was like, really just like, whatever. He goes, all right, okay. So you send it to there and good luck to you, okay? All right, have a good day. So now I'm like, well... I actually talked to somebody. So I was actually excited, just the fact that I talked to somebody at Jim Henson's office. So I was really just excited about that. So I was, all right, so now what do I do? Well, my senior year, like I was saying, this was my 5th semester, I took a composition of electronic music. I was getting into, fascinated with keyboards and synthesizers, and this was probably when I started composing. I had started composing music about a year before this class. And I wanted to take a class, and they didn't have any recording engineering. Remember in the beginning I said I wanted to be a recording engineer, and they had nothing at Chico State but broadcasting. Well, here's the joke on me, and I guess maybe this is another mistake I made. My senior year, they got funding to build a new recording studio and actually create a recording engineering degree. And I mean, they had all the gear to build these huge recording studios. And I saw all the gear in the scene shop up in the theater department. They had it like in these crates. And I was like, oh my goodness, I'm getting ready to graduate. But my bad thinking was, forget it. It's too late. I'm too old to do that. Can you imagine that? So what should Larry have done instead of leaving school and trying to be an actor? I should have stayed. Yeah, should have stayed and got a degree in recording engineering. I could have. But I took this one class called Composition Electronic Music, and the studios weren't built yet. So it was this little room that had a few reel-to-reels in it, some keyboards, some outboard mixing gear, not a whole lot of stuff, kind of old school. Even back then it was old school stuff. But nonetheless, it was a soundproof room. They had mics. They had things that I could record on. So I got the reel-to-reel set up, and I first, before I booked time in the studio, I went home and I just sat down and came up with literally like 20 different voices that I could think of anyways. And I came up with this different character names, and I put together some of the Muppet voices to show that I could imitate things. And I kind of put these little scripts together. so that it wouldn't just me saying, oh, here's a voice, or here's a voice. It was me just doing a conversation as one of the voices. So I did that, and I went in the studio, and I recorded it. And it came out pretty good quality-wise, because I didn't really have a lot of experience. And then I put it on a cassette tape. And I made a duplicate, of course, and I sent it off. Now, I sent it off, and I then started telling my friends what I did in the theater department. They got really excited. They were really proud of me. They go, wow, you actually did that? Wow. What would you do? What would you do if he wanted to give you a job? And I was like, I moved to New York, I guess. You know, that's what I'm going to do. So we kind of joked about it because it was like, you know, you're sending off a cassette tape. And even back then, it's just like when you wanted to be in a band and you're in a band in the garage band and you put a demo tape together and you mail it in. And, you know, just cases of demo tapes show up at record labels, and 99% of them get thrown in the trash and nobody listens to them. That's the same kind of thing I was thinking. So 3 weeks go by, and it's Saturday morning at about 8 in the morning. And I'm sleeping in, of course, because when you're in college, 8 in the morning on a Saturday, I don't care what you're doing the night before. That is just too stinking early to get up. So my phone rings. I don't have a phone near my bed. It's not. I don't have cell phones or anything like that. Actually, there's a phone on the wall. So I jump out of my bed, run in the kitchen. I pick it up, and I go. You know, I answer it, and this person says, "This is Mira Velimirovic from Henson's Associates," and I was just like, "Yeah." She goes, "You sent us a tape of voices a few weeks ago." And I was like, yes. And I could hear her. She sips her coffee. She goes like this. Oh, they're quite good. And I was like sitting there going, this is a joke. This has got to be somebody making a joke, because no one would call my house in Chico, California on a Saturday morning from New York to tell me my voices are good. So she calls and says that they're good. She goes, but the only problem is we don't know why you sent us the tape. Now, in my head, I'm like going, well, why do you think? I go, because that jerky jerk guy in your office told me to, because I said I wanted to be a puppeteer. But she said, well, we weren't sure what you wanted to do. I mean, are you sending us a tape to do voiceover work, or do you want to be a puppeteer? If you want to do voiceover work, we record the Muppet Babies in Los Angeles. Now, in the mid to late 80s, there was a Saturday morning cartoon called The Muppet Babies. And so that's what she was referring to. It was pretty big then. And now here's the first mistake. What do you think I said? If someone said to me, or do you want to do voiceover work in Hollywood, I just jumped at, I want to be a puppeteer. I didn't even think of the other option. I just said puppeteer because I wanted it all. That's the first mistake I made. Not wanting it all and wanting that drive to do everything, but the mistake was I didn't ask any more about the voiceover stuff. I didn't ask about it as an option. I didn't say, well, I'd like to do puppeteering, but tell me more about this voiceover work you speak of. No, I just said, I want to be a puppeteer. Forget about everything else. So she said, okay, well, if you want to do that, then you're going to need to send us a videotape of 3 different puppets, 3 different characters, with a little monologue, and I forgot 5 minutes or something like that. I said, okay, done and done. And then she gave me the address to send it to and all that stuff. So now I'm excited because, all right, I'm getting to show up. I mean, if I got asked to send in a tape of my puppets, then, boy, I think I might have an opportunity. Okay. So now what am I going to do? Because I don't really have any puppets. I had one puppet that I had from a child that was kind of a ratty little puppet. It wasn't even a character. It was like a little furry ball with legs on it and a couple eyes, and it was just one big mouth. It was kind of like a Tribble from Star Trek with legs and a mouth. So anyways, that's all I had. Well, the friend of mine that was the puppeteer that I was telling you guys about, she had a puppet that I told her about, hey, I did what you said. I called, I gave them a voiceover tape, and they want me to send in my puppets. And she got really excited. She says, well, I have a puppet that you can use, but it's handmade. A friend of mine made it, and I don't want anything to happen to it. And don't worry, nothing happened to it, so I'm not going to try to fool you into thinking like I dropped it. But it was kind of like the head was kind of a papier-mâché head, and it was painted very nice. It was of an old man. So his mouth didn't move. It was just like a ball, and he had this big ostrich feather mustache hanging over, and then he had thick eyebrows, and then he had like a fedora and a coat, and he was a rod puppet, so he had hands with a rod on it. So you don't open and close the mouth. So it was it was a cool looking puppet, but I was like, well, how am I going to manipulate this guy? I can't show that my mouth works, but I can move his head around and make do. So I had a really nice little monologue for him, talking about how every day he just likes to sit with the birds, and every day they like to decorate him, meaning they poop on his shoulders, and he knows all their names. And he goes, but you know what? They're my friends, and I don't mind. And that's all it was his little story. And I had that little furball puppet, and I called him Littlefoot as opposed to Bigfoot, because that's what that puppet's name was when I got him when I was a kid. So I did this little thing, a joke about him, and I forgot what it was. And I had like a little kid voice for him. For the old man, I did my stereotypical Yiddish old man, New York kind of a thing. And then I needed one more puppet. I'm like, now what am I going to do? Well, I went to some toy store where they have all those stupid animal head puppets, and I found this wolf head, which I don't know what happened to it, but it was actually a pretty cool looking puppet head, because it had a really good mouth on it for moving, animation kind of a thing. Animation, that's not the right word, but you know what I'm talking about. For manipulating, so I could do some good stuff with it. And it was just a head with a little bit of a neck on it, so there was no hands or anything else. And so I did this whole thing about wolves getting the bad rap for eating Little Red Riding Hood and Little Old Ladies and all of that. And at the end, he says, like, now look at this face. Does this look like a face that would eat your grandma? And he was kind of a rough voice. I don't know. Almost, I don't know. Fred Flintstone kind of a thing. So now the task was to film all this stuff. Now, we didn't have things like Final Cut, digital video editing software. It didn't have any cool things, any cool cameras. So I had to rent a VHS camera. Now, does everybody know what a VHS camera is? The big regular video cassette cameras. Thing weighs about 50 pounds. And then you rent it from like your local Blockbuster with a $200 deposit. Now, I had a friend that was a filmmaker, and he did great. He did so many cool things with video without having all that high-tech gear that we have now. He was just creative. So I said, will you film this, my audition? So he came over to my house, and we set everything up. We hooked the camera into the TV so I could have like a monitor, just like the Muppeteers have. And I sat on the couch, and we had it so that I was sitting down, and of course he had the camera up high to catch the puppets. And we did the audition piece. So we would do each one, and till I got it right, we would have all the takes on there. And then every time I would do a take, he had this like piece of paper, and he'd slide the piece of paper in front of the camera lens to make it look like a wipe. Like when a scene crossfades to another, it's like a wipe. We didn't even have a real, that's how you did it. It was like a piece of paper going across a lens instead of some digital trickery. So we did a bunch of takes, and I was pretty happy with it. And then I just got 2 VCRs together and basically picked my favorite parts and cut them together that way. Very, very old school, archaic way of doing stuff. And then I packaged it up. Once again, made a duplicate. At the very end of the audition, I showed them what I look like, and I said I hope to hear from them soon. And that was it. So I sent the tape away. Now, this was in the fall, probably like in September, and I graduated in December. Now, when I graduated, all my college financial aid and all that stuff ran out, and I needed to get a job. Well, the little town of Chico, now it's quite the big town, but when it was a little town, there really wasn't any work steady work where, that I could do, I was able to do. I didn't have a car. I mean, I could probably, you look back and I'm like, well, I could have rode my bike. I could have taken the bus. I could have done all this stuff. But bottom line was I couldn't find any work to take care of myself the way I thought I needed to take care of myself. And also, I thought I was for sure going to be moving to New York. So I was just going to hang out here, maybe move to my mom's, back home to my mom's house until Jim Henson called me. Well, I had a former roommate who moved up north to Sacramento, and he became an accountant. So Roland, if you're listening, hey, buddy. And Roland said, hey, I have a job opportunity for you to do some data entry in downtown Sacramento where I work. So I'm like, well, I'll move to Sacramento for a little bit because Jim Henson's going to call me. So I pack up, I graduate, I pack up, move to Sacramento. It's kind of a culture shock for me because I went all through college on financial aid and worked a little bit to now all of a sudden I'm like downtown in the state capital, scary part of town working, and all of a sudden I'm kind of thrown out of my element. So I was really kind of depressed, and how many of us are when we move away from home or far away. So anyways, I'm working and kind of figuring out what am I going to do. Well, a couple months later, probably 3 or 4 months later, I get a letter forwarded to me from my mom because I had the Henson people correspond to my mom's house because I didn't know where I was going to be, especially since I was going to be moving to New York. So I got the letter. My mom forwarded it to me, and it was my very first of many rejection letters. But here's a good thing. They actually critiqued my performance. It wasn't just like, you don't have what it takes, try again. They actually analyzed everything I did. The biggest thing with them was eye contact with the puppets, which I still to this day beg to differ with them because they were saying how my puppets, when they looked at the camera, their eye level was not even. And in the performances, when I looked at the tape, they weren't supposed to be looking at the camera, except for the last guy, the wolf. And he ended up looking at the camera, and they said when the wolf looked at the camera, he was right on. So their thing was, hey, you know what? You should try to study with some more, like join a puppeteers guild or do something in your local area, and then get the training you need, and then contact us, in the future. Well, that was it for me. I'm like, nope, if you didn't want me, forget you guys, I'm done. So what I did was I wish I still had that letter. I really don't know. I know I didn't throw it away, but somehow between my moving around, it got lost in the shuffle because I thought for sure I had all that stuff. Because for those of you that know me, I don't throw away anything like that. I keep everything. Anyways, so nothing ever happened. I never moved to L.A. to do voiceover work for the Muppet Babies, and I never became a puppeteer. Now, that was the biggest mistake I ever made that I'm constantly reminding myself of, is that I should have taken advantage, or at least when I got the rejection letter, contacted them and said, okay, what about the voiceover stuff? How about that? But I didn't do it. I was too cocky, and I was too like, you know what? Someone else is going to want me, so forget all you guys. Big mistake, right? So the biggest thing I think out of all of that, and I actually I was in Seattle a couple weeks ago, and I was with my good friend from college theater, Stasha. Hey, Stasha. And we were in court theater together, and I finally got to meet her husband. They've been married for like 17 years, and I finally got to meet him because we haven't been in contact. So it was a real thrill. Had dinner at their house, and he's been a working actor for over 30 years. Theater actor, voiceover, stage, TV, he's done everything. And I told him this story because he had never heard it. And he had said, you know what? You can't look at everything like you made a mistake. That's a choice you made, and you learn from it, and that helps you be a better person, and the next time you'll be a little smarter. This is the road that you chose, and now make the best of it. And I told him, well, what about, screwing up with the voiceover stuff? He goes, well, you didn't screw up. He goes, that wasn't for you. You just didn't pursue it. He goes, you don't know that you would have succeeded with that. So don't be so hard on yourself. And so I felt a little bit better, because I was really thinking like, well, boy, am I an idiot, But we all make those kind of mistakes. But what I learned from him, one thing he said, actually he just kind of reiterated. He says, you know what? You never say no. If you want to succeed in the entertainment business or music business or anything, when people offer you a job that you might think is beneath you, don't say no. Just take it. Now, real quick, I don't mean anything that's inappropriate or that would endanger you or is not morally sound for you to do that. I'm just saying, like, if I send in a voiceover tape to Jim Henson and they say, well, how about if you come sweep the floors at our office and do this, and then maybe after a while we'll let you play with one of the puppets. You say, okay. You don't take that job as beneath you. Everybody's got to start at the bottom. Even when you come out of college, having a degree in theater, that doesn't mean anything. You show up in Hollywood and go, hey, how's it going? I got a degree in theater. And unless you have a degree in some place that they really, really respect, where it's like a conservatory or where great theater, it's just like where you go to USC for business, right? Well, I went to USC Business School. That's a high-end business school, or Yale or Harvard or Princeton or any of those places, Stanford. They all have specialties that they're famous for, and that's why you go there. Well, Chico State, I got a great education from. I would not have had the acting opportunities if I had gone to USC or UCLA, because there were so many people in those departments at those bigger colleges, and to be honest, far more talented to where I would probably not be able to get those kind of breaks. And at the same time, at school at Chico State, I had a great bunch of teachers and a great set of peers and fellow actors. So I would not have changed anything for the world for that. That was a great experience. So this was my first big shot and my first big failure. Jim Henson and the Muppets. Anyways, that's it, everybody. Take care, and I will talk to you very soon. Bye.